Shalom, everyone. This is Dr. Ruth Pauline Plummer here to give you some insights from this week's Torah portion. You know, um, the Torah portion helps us to gain insight, to grow spiritually into God's Word. And this week, I want to talk with you about when the Israelites saw manna. They asked, "What is it?" And so let's learn about the Bible's whatchamacallit. When we don't know how to identify something, or we'll say, whatchamacallit. Well, let's talk about manna, money, and materialism. The journey from Egypt to Mount Sinai symbolizes spiritual growth. Israel leaving Egypt can be compared to a new believer being born again, right? When we think about an infant who is just now being born, we know that that baby has to learn to walk, to talk, and to eat solid foods. And Israel's first 49 days in the wilderness were filled with growing experience. Soon after leaving Egypt, their food supplies were exhausted. Facing starvation, the children of Israel cried out again, complaining that it would have been better to have died in Egypt with a full stomach than to die of starvation in the wilderness. Miraculously, the Lord sent a flock of quail for meat and introduced them to the angelic bread with which he would sustain them in the wilderness for the next 40 years. Every morning, a layer of dew settled over the camp of Israel. And when the dew evaporated, it left behind a thin, flake-like covering that the Torah compares to frost on the ground. And when the Israelites saw it, they asked, "What is it?" So the Hebrew word for manna means what? Manna essentially means whatchamacallit. Manna was amazing stuff. It had all the nutrition necessary to sustain a large population for 40 years. It appeared every morning and in an adequate amount so that no one went hungry. It could be cooked, boiled, or baked. However, it could not be stored. And if anyone tried to hoard it, it turned rancid overnight. Manna can teach us about money and materialism. God provides the bounty of the material world for our welfare. He provides adequately for our needs, sometimes in scarcity, sometimes with abundance, but always with sufficiency. He who gathered much had no excess, and he who gathered little had no lack. And that's found in Exodus chapter 16, verse 18. So when we try to hoard wealth, though it can turn into something spiritually ugly, just as the manna turned rancid and wormy, hoarded wealth sickens the soul. It causes us to cling to material things. And we no longer need to rely on God because we can rely upon our savings and investments. We no longer need to pray for our daily bread, as Yeshua taught us to do. He warned us in Matthew chapter 19, verse 23. He says, "Truly I say to you, it is hard for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven." Not that there is any special merit in being poor, but it is much more difficult to be affluent and keep your spiritual footing. And so the wealthy disciple must exercise constant vigilance against the deceits of wealth. And he must keep his hand open and generous, and he must be able to lay it aside for the sake of the kingdom. Thank you so much for joining me on Insights into the Torah portion for this week. And I pray that it has blessed you. And I want to encourage you to please make sure that you are read this Torah this week's Torah portion, which is found in the book of Exodus from chapter 13 through chapter 17, ending at verse 16. Well, thank you for joining me. Please pray for the peace of Jerusalem, and I'll see you this time next year in Jerusalem. God bless you.